Okay, before we get into today's episode, I just want to give a shout out to our sponsor for this month, Ad Marker. Ad Marker was created in 1974 as one of many in a long line of solvent-based markers used for advertising, fashion, conceptual illustration. Uh, really popular back when I was in art school, all kinds of markers of this type. And today, Ad Marker is top of its art class and design. It's one of the few xylene markers still available in the market and has outperformed many of the competitors over the years. Their lay down ink capacity and special effects are really cool. It's no wonder why so many artists still choose Ad markers over other markers, and they're a great sponsor. They sent us some marker sets to give away as part of our figure drawing events and our daily drawing challenge. So if you want to take part in either one of those, you can go to our events calendars to see when our figure drawing is, or you can go to our Facebook page and take part in the daily drawing challenge. And thanks again to Ad Markers. And if you want to check out all their merchandise, you can go to www.chartpackadmarker.com. Thanks again.
All right, welcome back, Inebri-arts. This is Andy of the Inebri-art podcast, and for a change of pace, we're actually recording today at the New World Tavern, and we are here with Kyler. You're an actor. Are you also directing this presentation?
I am, yes.
I don't want to short sell you on anything. And you're bringing Shakespeare to Plymouth is kind of what you're doing, right?
Correct. So I am the artistic director of Brown Box Theater Project. We are a nonprofit theater organization that brings professional live performance to communities throughout Massachusetts and other communities that have little or no access to the performing arts. Plymouth has a lot of really wonderful art scenes, and we are providing Shakespeare. And this year, we will be bringing As You Like It, one of Shakespeare's pastoral comedies. We performed for the last 2 years at a different location, but this year we will be at the Hedge House on August 19th. At 7:30 p.m. It is entirely free and open to the public.
Nice. And I believe they moved it this year because the park is all under construction.
Correct. So the down by the boats and everything is under construction, and they are renovating that park. So we are at the Hedge House. We're really excited to collaborate with the Plymouth Cultural Arts District and
Andrew Bortari.
Yes.
Yep,
yeah. And then also everyone over at the Hedge House as well.
Yeah. Last year, was it, I'm trying to remember, was it Hamlet that you guys did?
Yes, so we did Hamlet last year, and it was a really wonderful performance, with great collaboration with the Cultural District, and this year we jumped over to the comedies, and we'll be doing As You Like It.
So, now as far as comedies, there's Shakespearean, and I'm going based off my high school education, so please bear with me if I'm wrong, but comedy doesn't necessarily mean funny. It just means not a tragic ending. Is that correct?
So there's a very clear way. If it ends in a wedding, it's usually a comedy, even though there might be some darkness throughout. But usually wit is one of the main components of what constitutes a Shakespearean comedy. And this one starts off in the court where things aren't great. Society is pretty harsh. The Duke has been overthrown. His daughter, Rosalind, who is our leading lady in this production, in this show, she is exiled after being in court with her best friend and basically sister, Celia, and is exiled because the people like her more as the technical true heir. Yeah. And then they do the new Duke who overthrew her father. And so she's banished off into the woods. So really, society is not treating her or women across the board really very well in this situation. She was able to go into the Forest of Arden to find her father, and in this exile is liberated and is able to find kind of her true self and ultimately her true love. And so that's where the comedy comes in, is once they're exiled into the forest, we're liberated into this brand new natural society where she's able to really use her wit and use her power and take control of her own life.
And so a lot of people find Shakespearean stuff, I don't know if off-putting is the right word, but tough to grasp.
For sure.
It's an out-of-date use of English that we're not accustomed to.
Right.
Do you find your audience is older? Do you get a good mix?
We get a great mix.
Yep.
I think that what Brown Box and what I, as a director, am working so hard to do is to make sure that it is accessible. It is the mission of the company for physical access. And then when it comes to Shakespeare itself, I need to make those people and work with those people and those audience members who may not have seen Shakespeare ever, or who have only read it on the page in high school and are really not a fan. The joy of Shakespeare is that it is meant to be seen, not read. It is not literature, it is theater. And so to be able to go and see the full production, we're able to make it accessible, make it fun, and reach audiences from young folks, children, high schoolers, up to the most gray-haired friend that we might have in the audience.
And that's a really valid point, because I remember in high school reading Shakespeare and just... when you read it, it didn't make sense. But then we would watch a movie version in the class, and it would make sense. I really enjoyed Taming the Shrew.
Yeah.
So I never really thought about it, but yeah, I suppose it's meant to be seen and acted out.
It is poetry, and so I think sometimes that is translated into being something you can do in literature class or in your English class. But it's really still it's a script. It is meant to be seen and put into the body, into the voice, and to really hear it out loud. I know that what really made me love Shakespeare, even when I was in literature classes, was that someone told me, read it out loud to yourself.
Yeah.
And you start to hear things differently, and the way that the language works and is structured, and the use of certain vowels and consonants, actually, when you hear it, makes more sense.
Yeah.
And then I don't dumb it down. I'm not modernizing it. It is all Shakespeare's original text.
You're not doing the Leonardo DiCaprio version?
Right, we do. We are not. I work really hard to keep it true to the text for that Shakespeare scholar who really likes the original stuff, you know?
Yeah.
But I think it does, but also keeping it accessible to the people who it's not something they've heard very regularly. I mean, it is kind of Old English, right?
Yeah.
So it's trying to figure out how to make that fit into the modern ear and make sure that it is truly understood by anyone who walks up, whether it is the person who's read and seen every Shakespeare or the person who might be visiting this thing for the first time ever or first time since, senior year.
So is there one thing that, like a reference or a joke, that is lost to the ages that doesn't translate at all? And is there other than, I feel like the overall themes still hold true, but is there like something that you're surprised that carries over well?
So there are a lot of Shakespeare jokes that are based on words that we don't use the way that they're used now, and often those are the first things that get cut. So while we still use the original text, we do not rarely is it ever fully performed. If it were fully performed, it would be about 4 hours.
Oh, no kidding.
And no one really wants to go see an outdoor show for 4 hours, and I don't think that part is what isn't contemporary anymore.
Right.
So most productions you see nowadays are cut down and stripped of a lot of those references that might go over a modern ear or because the words literally don't mean the same thing as they did in Shakespeare's time. But I think the fun of As You Like It is those phrases like all the world's a stage or rhyme nor reason. Those are things that come from As You Like It. Those are words and phrases that we use, that you hear, that you may not even realize are Shakespeare, and they are in this script.
I didn't know. Look, in As You Like It, I am completely unfamiliar with. Like, I didn't even realize that was a Shakespearean play.
Yeah. So like the idea of rhyme, Orlando says to Rosalind asks her potential true love, "Are you really the man walking around? And do you love her as much as your poems say?" And he says, "Neither rhyme nor reason can say how much." And so he's truly, I paraphrase there a little bit, but that phrase that we say all the time is
I feel like that's a phrase that gets missaid because I've always thought it was rhyme or reason.
Yeah. Right.
So, and that's one of those, just through the process of time, people mishear things. And are there, what are some other common things that, even in any Shakespearean play, that we say all the time that we don't realize is...
Ooh, what are some other good references? I'll have to... on the spot there.
Sorry, I didn't mean to put you on the spot.
Well, I mean, everyone knows to be or not to be from Hamlet. Everybody... I think that there are some other... there are specific words that... I mean, Shakespeare created so much of like the actual words that we say nowadays.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, he created the language and a lot, and a lot of those things still translate to today. I'm at a loss at the moment for specifics for you, but but it's definitely worth a search.
I won't put you on a spot like that again. I'll try not to, anyways. I'm sure I will. But how did you get involved in Brown Box Theater? I'm assuming you acted as a child and whatnot.
So I actually came from an area in Maryland that was rather void of all creative arts in a lot of ways. There was some music here or there. There were some fine arts, and there was very little theater.
Okay.
And so I actually did not get introduced to theater until my 8th grade year, and then I started. And then in high school was able to really latch into this world that I felt so comfortable for the first time. And
was it immediately like, this is what I want to do?
Yes, it truly was, because I loved being on stage as an actor. And then when I went to high school, the first show we did was actually Shakespeare's Twelfth Night. Yeah. And that to date is still my favorite, one of my favorite comedies. And I truly love that. That was the first one we ever did 8 years ago. And then I went to college at Emerson in Boston for acting and directing, and realized when I started my directing career that this is truly where I thrive as an artist, is being able to like look at this big picture, create this world, and work with actors to achieve specific choices and great character development. And so when I graduated, I moved to New York for a little bit, among other places, and then started Brown Box Theater Project to really go back to my roots. As I said, I came from an area where there were no theaters. Yeah. There was just really nothing there of this medium. And so the goal was really to pack everything up in a brown box from the big city and take it where it's needed. And that is where Brown Box was born, and we started it. We're in our 8th season, and it's been growing and thriving, and we're reaching more and more communities and going back to my hometown amongst many others to fill in that void.
Now, do you guys only do Shakespearean stuff, or do you do other plays as well?
Our mission allows for us to do a variety of different types of work. So our goal, again, is about accessibility, not about specific types of work. So we do everything from Shakespeare to contemporary world premieres to musicals. Oh, cool. And so it's really about sharing with these underserved audiences, a huge variety and diverse array of works in order for them to see what this medium has to offer, especially if they haven't seen anything like it before. So while we always do a free Shakespeare production every August and September, it's a 7-week tour, we also do 2 to 3 other shows every year, like I said, including a musical cabaret, or we do a musical production in its entirety. We are commissioning a new play by Boston playwright Patrick Gaybridge called Mox Knox that will be world premiering hopefully next year, and so it's a huge variety, and we're always looking for communities and places to perform and to bring this work and to share all these different types with all of our patrons throughout Massachusetts and beyond.
That's really great. Like the one thing that I have really loved about Plymouth is how active the scene is for the arts and how everyone is always trying to make it better, add more to it. And so I think it's great that you're actually bringing that to other locations.
Yeah. Plymouth has been a great destination for us and a great community, and very supportive to create and to really activate these outdoor spaces is something we're really excited to be a part of. And I know that the cultural district has been working really hard to continue those efforts amongst many other organizations and facilities that are bringing the arts and keeping them alive here in Plymouth. And we are excited to be a part of it and look forward to hopefully bringing not only Shakespeare but some other productions as well.
Nice. And if I remember correctly, last year you guys did a class or a workshop on stage fighting. Is that...
We did a workshop with youth last year, and it was a lot of fun. We do have a whole educational component to what we do, and do often have workshops with students, with young folks or adults, depending on who's interested. And whether it's a page-to-stage workshop about Shakespeare, whether it's a beginner's acting class, whether it is indeed stage combat or fighting in that regard. Last year we did an acting workshop and then brought them down to see the fight call, because every day before the show, even though we've been rehearsing it for months, every day before you perform you do a fight call just to make sure that everyone stays safe and that the fake fighting doesn't turn into something
real fighting. So you are an actor and a director. Is there one that you prefer?
I have invested and love directing, and that is where my career has flourished and where I feel where I can do the most benefit for the communities that we reach.
So what is the real struggle? What is your favorite part of directing, and what is your least favorite part of directing?
I think my favorite part of directing is working with the actors and taking any text, whether it's Shakespeare or contemporary scripts, and really working with these actors to make choices and really tell a story. The world creation is also something I truly love. Being able to create this world with the actors, create a physical world with the designers and the set designer, the lighting designer, the sound designer. To bring this Shakespeare production to Plymouth, we have, I think, almost 35 people working on the production.
Oh, wow.
Only 16 of which actually tour with the show, and only 12 of which you see on stage. So we are working. It's a large company of people creating this world. So
half of what you do is behind, working with the people behind the scenes.
Correct. Is making. Why is the light changing? Why is the light that color? Why are we putting sound in this moment? What story? How are we supporting the story on stage with this sound, with this music, with this moment, and the costumes? How are we telling? What is the story we're telling with this costume? Does the costume need to change as the character changes? Those types of questions and just even thinking about the paint color of this spot versus the color of the costume versus the color of the light, and making sure that all is cohesive and works well together. Those are all choices that are made by the designer and the director to collectively create this world. And that collaborative effort, theater, unlike many other, a painter can walk over, look at something, begin their process, and do it by themselves. I can't do my work without actors, without designers, and without an audience.
Yeah.
Theater is not theater without someone watching it. So I require all of these other elements to make my art come to life. And so I love that part. That is probably my favorite part.
So it sounds like you're very into the whole collaboration side of it, that you're not like a Michael Bay who's this is my vision, damn it.
I mean, there is always a hierarchy in these types of things, in that I ultimately have to make specific decisions. If it comes down to this designer wants this color and that designer wants that color, and I have to be the one that makes that decision in the end. And so there's an element of that where I have the big vision and always have to have the big picture in mind. But the collaborative element of theater is what makes it such a wonderful art form.
So you have to be somewhat of a psychologist then too, to kind of I want to side with this designer, but I don't want to tick off that designer, so you got to like almost kind of smooth things over.
I think any leader or boss can attest to, you have to. There is always that level of politics inside of the position of how do I honor and trust the vision of everyone that's working with you and their effort and their passion, and how do you balance that with the big picture, whether that big picture is the bottom line for in financial business type things,
right,
or whether it's which I also have to do that,
right,
to be honest. But then also I also take into account the vision and the creative components of that as well, and finding that balance is indeed a lot of my job.
Is there... I'm trying to figure out how I can ask this without putting you on the spot.
That's okay. Go for it. Try it.
So you have different aspects. You have the lighting people and the stagehands and set designers and actors. Is there one group that's easier to deal with? Because I feel like actors, and I don't mean this in a bad way, because it's part of what they are more emotional, because they have to have access to those emotions. Like, are they more difficult to handle because of that sort of thing? Or
I have also in my career had to indeed learn how to deal with different types of personalities and different types of people. It is, whether it is an actor, and even actors have this like huge array of styles that they come into from their training. So I also have to look at, this person came from this school of thought for voice or movement, and this person came from this one. How do I make sure they're working in the same world?
Right.
And how do I communicate to them to make sure that I am getting them a note and directing them in a manner that they will be able to provide the vision.
Because you want them to
character.
have the same tone and
exactly,
and kind of be on the same page.
Exactly,
Yeah.
And so I have to translate, even based off their education, how I interact with each of these different actors. And they're also just different human beings. So that all human beings require something a little bit different. And that then goes into the designers. I mean, there's... working with a sound designer or a lighting designer or a set designer is a completely different bag of worms than working with an actor. I don't like or dislike one over the other. In fact, I think that's part of why I love my job, is that I get to look at a situation or and work with a person and navigate that path with them in a manner that is going to be productive and efficient and enjoyable. Most importantly, is enjoyable.
Do you ever get those kind of Daniel Day-Lewis type actors that are like, my name is Hamlet. You call me Hamlet because I'm Hamlet.
I have not had any method actors, no. So that's a very specific school of thought that I have not come across. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure that school of thought is definitely shrinking, and it's mostly, for those who are left, I think are still mostly in film. I mean, if you can imagine, Rosalind, if she were to be a method actress, she would be a method actress for 7 months playing Rosalind in her whole life. That would be a long period of time.
I didn't think of that, because like a movie you make for 6 weeks maybe?
Yeah, and depending on how early they start getting into their character.
Right.
I haven't worked with anyone like that, but that would be a long journey.
Because the theater run is much longer.
Right, so we have a 5-week rehearsal process plus a 7-week tour, and if they were to start this school of thought before we even went into rehearsals, that's a long time to be Hamlet or Rosalind in this case.
Do you find yourself still referring, because I've never done it, but I feel like if I was trying to put myself in that position, that I would refer to them as their character, like when they're on stage, just more of you want to avoid everyone else being like, hey Sheila, I mean Rosalind, to kind of...
I actually do something like that mostly because I want the actor, even when I'm talking to them about a moment that they just did in front of me, and I'm like, so what do you want in this moment?
Yeah.
And there's a level of merger that ends up happening when I speak to them with you, instead of saying, so what does Rosalind want in this moment? and then they can say, well, she wants this, which isn't what, and so then there's a distancing that innately happens there because, well, Rosalind wants this, when instead Margaret Clark, who's playing it, would if I say, what do you want in this moment, she's like, well, I want this.
Yeah.
And so there's a personalization that ultimately gets built there when you're talking about it in those terms and with those pronouns that I like to maintain. And sometimes some actors really don't like that, and I pick up on it really quickly if they are, well, he wants this, and there's a distancing factor. I'm like, okay, I can acknowledge this, and either work to reestablish that connection or acknowledge that they don't need it if that's how their process.
It reminds me very much, because I'm an active Dungeons & Dragons player, of kind of playing Dungeons & Dragons, where you kind of have, it seems like in the beginning of the night you'll be like, oh, my character's name's Stanley, so it's like, oh, Stanley's doing this, and then like 20 minutes in, it's like, well, I'm doing this, and I think this, and no, I wouldn't do that. And,
right. I recently came into a D&D life, recently started playing,
nice.
Actually on tour with our show Cymbeline that we did a couple of years ago, and now on tour we usually do one or two. It's a very theatrical idea.
Definitely.
And it truly does. It's character development, it's world creation, all those components. And the joy of D&D is that then you don't actually have to build it and pay the money to have the set built,
right,
and tour it over to Plymouth, right?
It's all in your head.
So,
and the thing that I always tell people is you can spend as little or as much as you want.
Exactly.
You could just have paper and the needed books and go with that, or you can have elaborate maps and models.
And it's really it's a fun, I think the reason why I have enjoyed that, and if for those D&D aficionados out there, the joy of theater is that you get I do all of that same work in my mind with these characters with a predetermined script, which you don't get in D&D, but those ideas, and I do all of that as a director in my head. I play the dungeon master, right? Is that
yes? Yeah. So, you're the dungeon master.
No, I don't.
Oh, okay.
But that's what I consider the director.
In directing,
in that
very
kind of
much.
idea.
Yeah.
And then you're working with actors and you're working with designers to create this world, and then we actually build it, which is the joy of theater, and take it to these other communities and share it with them and allow them into our world, and help guide them through this journey that Shakespeare wrote, so long ago. We just get to do it live. Yeah,
and to me, that's always been the appeal of Dungeons and Dragons. And when I try to explain it to people, I'm like, it's like if J.K. Rowling built the world of Harry Potter and laid out the story of Harry Potter and the villain and all the key things that had to happen, and then Harry Potter goes, I don't want to go to Hogwarts.
Yep.
It's trying to get through the story the way you want without having control of what any character says.
Right.
So it to me, it's endless fun, and but it's very theatrical. It's theater of the mind.
Exactly.
And it really, the freedom to do anything you want.
Yeah.
It's great.
And I think that's why a lot of theater artists go into this, is that we do the active imagination, the being able to explore these other emotions and these other personalities, these other voices. Though that's why I love theater. That's why so many of us do theater, is because we want to both explore those emotions, explore those characters, explore those voices and those lifestyles that are not our own.
Yeah.
And then share those same things with these other people and with our audiences. And
it's one of those things that everyone did when they were a kid.
Right.
I was Superman, I'm a cop, I'm a robber, whatever, and then at some point you stop that. It's important for children to do that because it teaches them and they learn things, and so there's no reason not to continue it.
Yeah. And it's important for all of us to learn about the unheard voice. And I think that's the best thing that the arts have to offer, is that we get to share in a safe environment with a little bit of distance for the audience, share with them some of the darker or just different perspectives that they may not see on a day-to-day, in their day-to-day lives. And so even with Shakespeare, which is so old, the universal themes that are within it, and within As You Like It, these ideas of liberation, these ideas of self-empowerment, self-worth, what it means to love and to be loved, those themes that are within As You Like It and within Shakespeare, it survived this long because
'Cause it's timeless.
We can still relate to those things. And yes, there might be heightened text, and it's not in our contemporary contemporary language, but there is still so much to hear and gain from the poetry, from the heightened text, and to share with people. And I think that in an age right now where I feel like we want to start building empathy with the people around us, it's so important for us to just be open to listening and hearing what other people have to say. And explore and appreciate what other people have to offer. And I think that in that realm, that's something that Rosalind really pushes for, is falling in love with a real person, not the idea of a person. And she is working with Orlando. She's dressed up as a boy, pretending to be a woman. So she's a woman dressed up as a man, pretending to be a woman in this play. And she's trying to teach him how to truly love Rosalind as a real woman, as a complete woman, and as someone who has highs and lows like every human does, and not to love an idea and the idea and put her on this pedestal that no human could actually fully achieve.
So it sounds like obviously the main character, this is a woman. She sounds like she's a strong character. In today's political climate with the Me Too movement, was that like a conscious decision to pick this one, or is that just kind of a happenstance?
I know that Rosalind is maybe one of the most perfect characters in the whole Shakespearean canon. I think she is one of the most powerful women in the entire canon, and I believe that her voice needs to be heard right now.
Yeah.
And that was something that I acknowledged. It's something that within the cut of the play I have highlighted and tried to make sure that we understand the importance of listening to Rosalind and the importance of listening to women across the board. And I think it is time to, especially for men in a lot of ways right now, it's time for us to close our mouths and open our ears and start listening. And I think that is something that this play offers. It's something this play welcomes and invites people to do, is to hear and appreciate and love everything that Rosalind has to say, and her power and her voice. And she is liberated. She goes into these woods fearful for her life because she is a woman, and she dresses up as a man and is able to achieve and say things and find parts of herself because she is not burdened by obligation and duty and these imposed things that are put upon her by society as a woman.
Yeah.
And she's able to find herself, find her love, and find a life where she can be herself, and also to invite the people around her to be better.
And you said last night was open night, correct?
Correct. We opened last night.
How did it go?
It went very well.
Yeah.
We had a large crowd. I think almost.
Where were you performing?
We were performing at Christian Herder Park in Alston, just outside of Boston. It's technically part of Boston. And it's a beautiful amphitheater. It was, I think we had almost 250, 300 people there. It was a wonderful night, beautiful night. The rain held off. Doesn't look like it's going to for the rest of the weekend, but we'll see. And it was, people really enjoyed the show, and I would call it a big success.
Nice. So these are rain or shine events?
They are not.
Okay.
They are. Some of them, like our performance in Plymouth, does have a rain venue.
Okay.
So the one here in Plymouth will be rain or shine. It just keep an eye on our Facebook or our website, where we will tell you whether or not we are inside or out. Weather permitting, we will be at the Hedge House, and otherwise, I think we'll be at the Boys and Girls Club.
Oh, nice. The Hedge House is such a great location.
It's a great spot.
And if the weather's nice, it's going to be killer.
Yeah, I'm very excited. It's a great spot. I will be there on the 19th at 7:30. We're excited for it to take over that whole space, and it'll be a beautiful backdrop for our set.
Is there one play that you have yet to do that you're really chomping at the bit to do?
I am a huge fan of Othello. I'm assuming you want Shakespeare's.
No. I mean, no, it can be anything.
Oh, I I have a director's list of 5 or 6 big plays that I'm like, one day I will do these. I have big ideas and big thoughts for them. 1 or 2 musicals. I have. I think Othello is on my list of plays I really want to explore for Shakespeare, and I'm very excited about this contemporary script that we just commissioned, Mox Knox, that I think is just going to be a really fun. It's about magic,
cool.
and just a family drama, but with the language of magic being very integral to the language of storytelling.
Do you have trouble when you go to see theater shutting off the director part?
Oh, yes.
And like, do you miss just being able to go and just enjoy a play?
I think the best plays that I have seen are the ones that I can turn my brain off during. But most of the time, a lot of people say theater artists make the worst audience members, because we do. We know the magic tricks that happen inside of theater. We know what's happening. I see blocking, and the movement of people on stage. I'm like, why did the director do that? Or,
he doesn't belong there.
Like, why? That was so weird, know? And so, it takes me out of it. And sometimes I miss just walking in and being able to relax and just be told a story. And I think I actively need, like, before I walk into a space, I actively have to say, Kyler, stop.
You're just a person.
You are an audience member. You do not need, just take in the story and find what, it doesn't have to be judgmental all the time. And I think that's the hardest problem with our industry in a lot of ways, is trying to turn off our brains and appreciate the art that we are creating and that the people around us, because it takes a lot of work. Even the play you hate the most, the amount of energy, the artists who created that deserve compassion and they deserve appreciation for even creating something.
Well, a great play that has also been a movie, I think, that really kind of illustrates that is Noises Off. Because it's not just it's not just the play, it's not just the actor, it's like all the politics, all the personal relationships. For even an okay play or movie or show to be okay, the stars have to align just right. It's really easy for them to go badly.
I think that play, I am not totally familiar with it, but I mean I've seen it and I've seen the movie, and to pull off that amount, the timing of that.
Oh yeah,
and the props and the movement of people and things and everything. Yeah. And to be honest, that one shows it more transparently. Mm-hmm. But almost every play has that component to it. Yeah. I mean, it's very rare that someone's just sitting on stage on a stool.
Right.
And even if they are, I bet you the lights are changing, and you may not completely notice it.
But
that's their job.
Yeah.
Is to not have you notice it, but allow that when that thing goes from green or from blue to red or something like that, it's taking you on a journey with your eyes in some capacity,
or the music to
change underneath and to underscore something. I mean, just the amount of how that can emotionally, and I use manipulate here in a good way, emotionally manipulate the audience.
Yeah.
Is
well, that's really what actors and directors are supposed to do.
Right. Yeah.
You're manipulative people. But you never said, what is your least favorite part of directing?
You're right, you caught me. It's right now, I'll be honest with you, it's hard in my life to take off my artistic director hat from my director hat, which I have very different. The artistic director, I run the business, right?
Yeah.
I'm making big, long-term decisions versus I'm the director of this one show.
Yeah.
And I think that it's hard for me to switch those on and off. And so the hardest part of my job and my career at the moment is finding that balance and being able to focus and enjoy the moment of this play right now and stop thinking about 2020, which I am already doing.
Right.
Right.
And so you're trying to look at the grand picture of what Brown Box is.
Correct.
But you want to also focus on the play you're putting out now.
Yeah. And I mean, also, let's be honest, I unlike a lot of directors, because we are a touring theater, I go on tour with the show.
Right.
Most directors in theater, the show opens and they're done. I do not stop.
Yeah.
I drive the trailer around and and I help load the set in and build the set every day. So when things break, I don't really like that either.
Yeah.
Like last night even, it was opening night and something fell in the trailer and it kind of came apart a little loose and I had to go and find the hardware and do it and re-screw this thing in.
So you have to be a little bit of everything. You're the grip, you're the...
Yep.
Yeah.
So I wear many a hat, and I think that that's probably as a small organization, we have to do a lot with not a lot of dollars and with not a lot of other people. We don't have a crew.
Right.
So the actors are building the set. And when you come and see As You Like It, the set is a 2-story treehouse.
Okay.
It's 25 feet by 30 feet.
2-story, like people can actually get up to the second.
To the second
wow.
level,
Yeah.
and there are lights up there. It's 18 feet high, and it's 30 feet wide, and it's massive.
Yeah.
And we put it up in an hour and 15 minutes.
Oh.
We break it down in an hour, and it all goes into one trailer at the end of the night.
Makes me a little nervous.
And it's stable. Yeah. It's very, very stable.
Do you have actors that are afraid of heights that are like, I'm not going up there?
Yep.
Yeah.
And they don't. So I knew it from day one, and I didn't block them up there, and it worked out really well.
Oh, nice.
And then there are other people who got up there and like, oh wow, I'm not afraid of heights, but this is tall. But you know what? That's they've overcome it. It's beautiful, and they're up there, and they were up there last night, and it was spectacular. So
that's awesome.
So yeah, I mean we're doing a lot with not a lot of money, with actors and directors and other people actually putting up the sets and putting up the lights, and we're doing it on a shoestring in a lot of ways. And so every one of us has multiple hats on. Every person that you see at a Brown Box production is playing multiple roles, whether it's multiple roles on stage. If someone's playing 2 roles on stage, they're also probably setting up the lights before the show and breaking it down after.
I feel like in that kind of situation, it would be a lot harder to get an actor and actress who is a bit of a diva.
It is. We are looking for. We have to be thoughtful about the human element of people. You know, many actors, like actors on Broadway and actors even in other shows, they arrive 30 minutes before. They get into their costume, they perform, they get out of costume, and they leave.
Yeah.
We leave for Plymouth at 3:00 in the afternoon. We will arrive here somewhere around 4:30, depending on the traffic from Boston. And it's taken me
probably
a long
4:30.
Probably, right. And then we will set up the stage from 4:30 to 7. The audience will arrive. We will perform from 7:30 to 9:15, 9:20, and then we'll break it down. We'll leave here around 11.
Do you guys not eat or sleep?
Then we drive back to Boston.
Wow.
So you know, we can't have divas. We have to have adaptable, flexible, passionate artists who believe in the mission of what Brown Box is doing. And again, that is all about providing access to people to high quality professional performing arts.
And even when you have people that are that dedicated, there must be days where
everyone has a bad day.
Someone
I have bad days. We all have our rough moments, and what we really try to do is support each other through those bad days. Pick up the weight of someone who's having a rough one today, knowing that tomorrow it might be me that needs the help.
Yeah.
And I think that is the community that we build in theater. Most groups do that kind of thing and do have that kind of community, but we have it even further because not only are we doing all this extra work, but then we end up going on tour and living together for 4 weeks away from home.
So if you have a chip on your shoulder, it's going to make life really difficult.
It's going to make life hard. And so we work really hard to be aware of we're getting high-quality, talented people who can do their acting job really well, but I would be lying if I didn't also make sure I was trying to find good people.
Right. So for younger people that would be interested in not just theater but directing, like I feel like getting involved in theater is fairly easy. Most towns have some sort of theater organization, but how do you get involved in directing? Like how do you, as a kid, try it out? Other than bossing your siblings around.
Right. It's hard because I'd say even people who've gone through school to be directors, getting those opportunities outside of school is very challenging. Because for every 12 actors, there's one director, right? So that's not always the ratio, but for me it is for this show in particular. And So it's harder in that regard. But I am a firm believer that to be a great director, you need to have a good, versed understanding in every component of what it means to make a play. So right now, you might not be able to actually direct a play, but go act. Know what it takes to be an actor. Go work with a lighting designer or a set designer or a choreographer or someone else and shadow them, apprentice them, follow them. Be the assistant to the director. Go fetch the coffee for the director because you're going to see what that director has to do.
Right.
Because in the end, I believe that I can't make great decisions about what color that light should be if I have no idea how the light works.
Okay, yeah.
And I'm a firm believer, and not every director believes this. And,
Yeah.
and there are directors out there who are like, I do this. This is my single direction. This is how I work. I do this. And the reason I hired a lighting designer was because
That's
they
his
know
job.
lights.
Right.
I don't function that way. My biggest advice to people is that in order to work in a collaborative art form and to truly be able to work and collaborate with these other designers, with these other people, especially as the director who has to collaborate with everyone, every single person, you need to know what their job is and how it works, and what it takes to do their work. Because then you become more empathetic of what you're asking of them, and I think it ultimately allows you to explore and imagine and dream bigger in those components of when you're trying to make your world in whatever play you're directing.
Yeah.
So right now, it might be hard to actually get a directing gig. But for young folks who are interested and find that they have that leader brain, they see the big picture, they're excited to actually be in control of creating this entire world.
Yeah.
Knowing how to create all of the components of that world is the first step to success.
To do every job.
Yep.
Yep. Do you find, and I just thought of this, my daughter was in a play recently. She played Flounder in Little Mermaid.
Oh, wonderful.
And she did great.
That's
and
amazing.
But she's very quiet and shy. And I remember when I was a kid, I was in a lot of plays, and I was kind of the same way. I was a very quiet child. Do you find actors are like that in general, that they're more comfortable on stage than they are?
There are a lot of people like that are on stage, that are quieter, that don't love socializing. There are some people like that, but they get on stage and they shine.
Yeah.
And there are others who are kooky and fun and crazy, and then go on stage and are still kooky, fun, and crazy.
Yeah.
You know, that's the joy of it. It is anyone. And any personality, if you love being on stage, if you love telling stories, you can be an actor. If you get the right training and you do the voice work and you learn how to be comfortable in your own body and with your voice and your full instrument, because that is our instrument. We don't play the trombone.
Right.
We play, with the instrument is the body, is the voice, is being able to move. And if that means that you're quiet in school but this is the way you get to communicate, go for it. And if you have all this energy and you just want to tell stories with energy, then go out and go for it. It doesn't. There's no secret formula to the type of person it takes to be a great artist. It's truly about communicating passion and appreciation for storytelling and wanting to share stories of again, whether it's allowing people to escape off into the Little Mermaid's world, or whether it's trying to do Shakespeare and sharing some whether it's something like Hamlet or As You Like It, that's sharing these vital stories, or whether it's something really dark and showing kind of the worst parts of humanity. All of those things, any type of storytelling helps people understand our world better. And any type of person can help share those stories.
Now, if you had to act, do you prefer the villain or the hero?
I like the villain.
I feel like they're more interesting.
You could tell.
I just feel like people are more... I'd rather play the villain. I feel like it's more interesting.
I'm very much attracted to psychology in that regard, into seeing how the human brain can function, and in going to those places in the brain that don't necessarily... that I'm not going to on my daily life.
Yeah.
So I do that's part of what drove me into acting when I was doing that more often was just really trying to explore a mind and a voice other than my own. And that's still, to date, even as a director, that's part of the mission of the company I've created, is that I want to share the unheard voice. I want to introduce people and allow them into the psyche or into the story or into the lifestyle of people that are very different from themselves. And whether that's going into the villain's mind and seeing how that works, or whether it's just going into someone that looks different than you, or the story of someone that is coming from a very different place than you. It's important for us to be able to see and hear those so that we can actually make informed decisions and also look internally and determine whether or not we're making good decisions ourselves. It ultimately becomes reflective.
Yeah.
What you see on stage, we're trying to have you then, how do you fit into the picture? And that, so I like going into the psyche of some darker things, hoping that people can look at that and be like, okay, is there even some tinge of that in me? Do I see that? What do I do about that when I see it, if I were in this situation? And those types of, being able to relate and learn from these other voices and work with them is really
I always see
what I do.
I always see the villain as the hero in his story.
Well, everyone has to... Right. The villain can't know he's the villain in a lot of ways. He can know... He's got to want something. And that's something... When you're working with actors, you're always... What is your goal? What is your tactic? Not only how are you doing it, but what do you want? And what is your ultimate goal? And, the bad guy in As You Like It, Duke Frederick, he's not really a villain, but he's the closest thing we probably have to one, in that he is the Duke.
Yeah.
He feels like he is being undermined by Rosalind. Now, Rosalind's our heroine, right? She's the person we're going to follow here, and we love her. But Duke Frederick, when you look at it from his perspective, he's losing control of his dukedom because the people like her more. And furthermore, his own daughter, Celia, he believes is being undermined because everyone loves the former princess, Rosalind instead of his daughter. And Celia doesn't agree with that, and Celia doesn't really care. She even says to Rosalind, I'll let you be the princess when I take over.
Yeah.
Like, I don't really want that. You're better at this than me. But nonetheless, his perspective is one of family and one of wanting the best for his daughter.
Right.
Which, when you look at it from that perspective, you're like, okay, I don't like how you're doing it.
Right.
I don't like the fact that it's causing harm to other people. But I get the why.
Yeah.
So then we can start asking ourselves, when you see someone like that, what do you do about it? How do you help that person achieve comfort and stop acting from a place of defensiveness and paranoia?
Right. And to go from Shakespeare to comic books, I don't know if you've seen the most recent Avengers movie, but
I did.
The Thanos is so tragic.
Yes.
Because he doesn't want to do it. He feels it's the only way to save people, and it's
and that's what makes him an amazing villain.
It was best villain I can remember in a long time.
In the Avengers, in the Marvel universe, I agree. I think that because you look at it and you're like, he's not. This is a problem. Yeah. Overpopulation is indeed an issue.
Right.
Like, we are destroying. Like, he's talking about the whole cosmos, right? But like turning it into our lives. I mean, we're not doing great things to our planet right now, and we have a problem. But the way he's planning to do it is not right.
Right.
You know?
Of course, yeah. But like, when you see a villain brought to tears by his own actions,
right,
but he feels he has no choice. It's like it's like you can't hate him.
No.
Because he's trying to do the right thing. He's just misguided.
Exactly.
Yeah. So where can people go online to find out where Brown Box is going to be, and upcoming dates and whatnot?
www.brownboxtheater.org, and that's theatre.org. And you can find our entire schedule for the entire performances run of As You Like It, including our August 19th performance in Plymouth. And it has dates and details all right there when you click onto the As You Like It page. You can also follow us on Facebook or Instagram, where you can get all the updates and see some insider scoop, some production photos that are coming out very soon, and learn all things Brown Box coming up in the future as well. on our website, you can also sign up for our email list to get the immediate up-to-date information as well.
And if an actor wanted to get involved, is there information
There's
there as well?
There's a whole Get Involved section right there. You can reach out to the right people, whether you want to get involved in the design components, whether you want to get involved as an actor. All that information, all that contact is right there online.
Well, Kyler, thank you for bringing theater to Plymouth. I mean, we have theater, but thank you for bringing more theater to Plymouth.
Oh, yes. We're happy to do it.
Thanks for coming down early on a Saturday morning. You now hold a record. This is the earliest we have ever recorded a podcast in the day.
Well, I will hopefully, for your sake, hold that record.
Yeah,
for a while.
I'm not. It'll be a cold day in hell before we record earlier. I'm not a morning person, but thank you for coming down and making the trip, and we're looking forward to seeing great things out of it.
Well, thank you very much. We'll see you at the show, hopefully.
I believe so. I think
Great.
I'm free that night. I'm going to try to get there.
All right. Thank you so much.
Outstanding. All right. Thanks for listening to our podcast. Don't forget to check out our other podcasts. There's the Bar Talk podcast. There's Old Colony Cast. And, of course, the Inebri-art podcast along with Jam Packed. You can find all those on Stitcher, iTunes, SoundCloud, YouTube, pretty much anywhere podcasts are found. If you're on some sort of service and you can't find it, let us know, and we'll help you out and or add our podcast to that, too. You can contact us at Inebri-art@yahoo.com and follow us on Facebook as well as Twitter at Inebri-art. And feel free to send us some tips, ideas, advice, hate mail, whatever it is, you can get us there. And again, thanks for listening.